Back again, still working with my new Ender 3 Pro printer, and definitely needed to do some upgrades in order to achieve the things I needed to achieve. I'll show you what I did. After the last episode, you saw that I bought an Ender 3 Pro 3D printer, put it together, did everything on my own, with no watching YouTube videos and somebody else doing it first or anything like that, using the tools it came with. Overall, printer is actually pretty good, you know, considering for the price that I paid for it, and just like from what I heard from some other 3D pros more out there than I am, because obviously I just started doing this. You know, you can actually get some really good results from it. But there are a few things right off the bat that I needed to upgrade, some things I needed to change in order to do that. One of the first things right off the bat that I had to change was the filament. The stuff that I got, that Pro or Grade A PLA purple stuff there, it was cheap. It was like $24 Canadian, so you know, American, that's pretty damn cheap actually. You know, and if you're printing like more solid objects with not a lot of small pieces or components or, you know, little things sticking out that can break off, it'd be okay. But like to do a mini like this, which I don't know if that's going to focus on that, but he did have an axe here, and you know, like I don't mind doing this because this is garbage anyway, but you can see how easy that just breaks off, just like that, just like nothing, like just, you know, like it's garbage. So like I said, doing something larger, with not necessarily moving parts or parts that need to be stressed, you know, then it would be okay. It would be a good cheap stuff to buy, you know, just to make, you know, a mass amount of plastic, you know, that's, you know, solid. One of the things I made actually was a cup holder, and it fits beer cans perfectly. It's got a really cool texture design to it. I got it off of Thingiverse. You know, I'll put a picture of it right there. You know, as you can see, this thing looks pretty cool. It's pretty durable. Now, if I was to squash it, there's no flex to it. It'll just crack, right? But as it stands, just the way it is, it's not going to be under a lot of stress. It's probably gonna last. It'll be okay. So for printing things like that, you know, little gift ideas, maybe we got Christmas coming up, it'd be okay, and you're not gonna break the bank, your wallet, or whatever to do it. But if you want to do anything like minis that are obviously gonna have smaller little pieces and things that need to flex or bend possibly without just snapping off, it's not gonna do. If you're going to do anything to, like, say, for instance, I built a dice tower that I also got off of Thingiverse. There it is. You swivel the top of it and it closes up, and then the tray comes off and it sticks together and it becomes your little container, you know, that you can carry your dice in. But then you swivel the back, the door opens, the dice come out, and you get the little tray and it just clicks into the front. Now, the little things around the top looks like a castle. They actually have these little clips that hook on to the top, so it stays on there. And me just pressing that on to get it to click on, one of them broke, because that stuff just has zero flex, does not flex at all, right? So again, best thing would be just solid big objects, you know, like if it was like a plant pot or something like that, with just maybe a cool design, it'd be okay for that, but I wouldn't use it for really anything else. So the next one that I went to, and this stuff here has been fantastic. Huge difference. And of course, one of the things I learned right off the bat is you also have things like PLA Plus. and PLA Plus is a little stronger and it's a little bit more refined. There's also things like more consistency to the width of the actual 1.75 millimeter filament, right? They all have a little bit of a tolerance of like 0.03 or 0.02, right? You know, so that also makes a difference. Another thing too is the moisture level. You know, some say that, well, it's not that bad. You know, you get a lot of people that are printing stuff, they come up big spools or hanging, you know, but I've been a certified welder fitter in the past too, so if it has anything to do with the same kind of bonding as like a 7018 welding rod, right, that over time, you know, about 2 hours exactly, really, it becomes contaminated with moisture from just the regular air, right? And then what happens in welding is you end up getting what they call slag inclusion, right, in your weld, and it contaminates the weld because of the moisture that's bonded to the rod. And once it's been bonded, it's there, it's never really going away. However, with the plastic, it's like it can be dried out as far as I understand. You know, so it's kind of, you would think it wouldn't really matter too much, but if it was really bad, from what I also understand too, is that you'll actually hear popping and crackling and stuff as it's coming through the heat of your extruder, you know, in the little tip, you know, as it comes out to make your models or whatever it is that you're printing. So they come vacuum sealed in bags with silicate bags in them to absorb moisture and everything. So I figured if they're going to vacuum seal them, if they have silicate bags in them to absorb moisture as well, then obviously moisture can't be good. So the next thing that I wanted to upgrade was the case, or a case, that my filament actually sits in, right? And that case not only, you know, keeps it away from the elements and keeps the moisture out and everything, but it actually has a heater in it. And again, you know, with welding rods, you know, welding rods can last forever if they're vacuum sealed and away from moisture completely, but then how do you use them? So what they do is they actually have ovens, right, that they put welding rods in, and it keeps the moisture out constantly all the time. Plus, the welding rod is already preheated to a certain degree. So when you go to weld, it's just like butter, you know, it comes out and it's beautiful. And you get really nice welds out of a nice warm, you know, moisture-free rod. So I'm thinking, okay, well, again, if it's kind of like that, we're welding plastic together with this hot-tipped plastic extruder thing, then moisture again can obviously cause bonding issues, you know, with the plastic. As far as I can understand, that would make sense to me. You know, if it can do that with metal, why can't it be the same kind of situation with plastic? So I ended up getting a container from Sunlu. It wasn't too expensive, right? That your whole spool sits in, and it actually has bearings and stuff in the bottom, little things that rolls on, so it actually rolls out better too. So it's easier for your system to draw the plastic in and down through to your printer, but it also stays completely enclosed except for just where the filament comes out. And the way that I have it set up is that the filament really only comes out this far, right, from the box, right, into the tubing of your printer. So there's not a whole lot of exposure for not a very long time, and it's preheated. There's a heater inside the box, runs for up to like 8 hours. So, you know, if you're checking on it once in a while, if you want to continue to run it, you just have to reset it again and it'll keep going, right? And it keeps it warm, right? Keeping the moisture out and kind of like pre-warming your plastic. So it's easily more formable. Would that be how you'd say that? So in combination between that, and this was the stuff I tried as my next filament. And this 3D Fuel is actually pretty darn good. I was really impressed with it. It says that it has like these gauges on the back here, right? And it tells you like the ease of printing. It's easier. It's not as difficult to print with. right? That your print speeds can be between 40 to 100 with this particular stuff. Now, I don't know. I've never really gone faster than 50 or 60. I find that's kind of a comfortable space for me right now, but again, I'm just experimenting. I'm just learning. You know, if you could print with this at that kind of speed and still get great results, hey, that would be awesome, because man, it already takes a long time to print. So anything that can speed up the process so you can get onto your next print would be fantastic. And then the heating bed temperature, you know, is 0 to 60. Well, I usually run it at 50, 60 anyway, right? It says that it's strong, it's not weak, and it's durable. It's between rigid and flexible, and that was the problem with the other stuff. It was really, really, really rigid, but there was no flex, so it would just crack. This stuff is almost in the middle between flexible and rigid. I've got an example of that too. So here is, for instance, this is a thing that I got from Thingiverse, and it's, you know, most people looking at what the heck is that? If you've ever played around with a thing called Gravitrex, it's a fantastic thing for pretty much all ages, I think, really, because I've seen some pretty elaborate constructions of this made by obviously not just children, but I did buy it for my daughter, something to do with my daughter, because it's a building thing. Very, very cool. If you've never checked out Gravitrex, check it out, and then check out Thingiverse too, because there's tons and tons of stuff that you can print for it as well, so that you don't have to spend as much money buying all of the basic parts. One of those things, and one thing that you always run out of all the time, is risers. So, you know, this actually clicks into the board, and then you have other components that click on top, and it, you know, your little steelies or marbles would roll around a track that you create. You know, you can see with this, if I get it to focus, focus. See, you can see it's flexible. It's flexible, and it doesn't break. You know, now I wouldn't want to give it too much, because it still will break. It's very, very thin. One of the reasons why I actually printed this particular one out was because of the fact that it's thin. It doesn't use a whole lot of plastic to achieve the same thing that normally you would get from Gravitrex. Now, this is just a single layer Gravitrex building block, you know, for creating your towers and stuff. That's exactly what they really look like. It pretty much just like that, you know, in the actual game, except it's not hollow in the center, again, using less plastic than the originals. You know, which is good, because plastic is expensive once you start buying lots of it. And I did buy a few more rolls yet to try, and it, you know, it cost a bit of money. That said, that one there used a lot less plastic, so I printed out like 12 of them all at the same time, and it was great, because maybe it took some time to print it, but the end result, I've got a whole bunch now of these taller pillars to be able to stack up and make a bigger, you know, design, you know, for these little steelies to, you know, move around and run around all these tracks and contraptions and things that you can set up. It's really cool. But this stuff altogether has been really, really good so far. It also produces decent minis. There's one right here. You can see how big it is compared to my finger, right? And of course, this camera sucks for zooming in to see the quality, but really, you know what, turned out pretty darn good. And it doesn't break like the other one, except for this one little spot here, which you can see I could probably glue it later and it'd be fine. This is such a stupid camera. Focus. Right here. There's a little piece there that broke. But, you know, that's super, super fine. I don't know if I'm going to make all my characters like that. You know, of course, if you want to get that kind of detail and that kind of thinness, you're going to make some sacrifices to strength. So, I think I'm off to the right start. But I also didn't achieve that without some other upgrades that I did as well. Overall, this stuff here has been decent. It's been a good quality. Anybody that wants to try out that 3D Fuel, if you have, or if there's something even better, put it in the comments below, right? Because I'd love to try it. I'm up for trying any filament. Throw me filament, like, show me, I'll buy it. If you have it and you want me to try it, send it, or contact me and send it to me. Let me try it. I'd love to. I'm just really excited about this, making minis and stuff. The other thing that I needed to upgrade for sure on this 3D printer was the Z-axis. Now there's a problem with it, and I noticed it more when I was printing, say, multiple things on the actual bed. And that is the fact that your your X, I guess, your horizontal bar that your little printer moves back and forth on, right? The problem with it is it only has one motor and one rod on one side that makes that whole bar move up and down. So technically you have a bar here and you have a bar here, and this one here is the one that's moving the whole thing up and down. So you figure what's going on this side. This side here pulls up, this side drags. When it pulls down, this side drags. So it's doing this, right? That's basically what happens. Very, very, very little, very subtle. You can barely notice it. Well, you can't notice it. You can't see it like to your eye. But it is in fact doing that. And where you notice it is when you're doing multiple prints. If you're doing a single print in the center, it's fairly, just one little mini or something like that. You may not notice it at all, just because it's such a small focus point, right? But if you get multiple things, then what happens is you've got, I was seeing some irregularities in the print because everything might print fine over here, and then over there was, on this side, was a couple millimeters shorter. It wasn't quite as built up or something, or it wouldn't even print properly at all. It would end up dragging out or kicking at one side, right, and then just making an entire mess around the whole thing. So I went online and I found an upgrade that actually gives you an additional Z-axis motor and shaft to go on the other side, so that now you've got two motors that are spinning, moving that bar up and down in unison. And now there's no drag on one side anymore. Everything moves together, nice and smooth. So that, you'll see, I put it all together, and this is how I'm starting to get better results now, right? Because I've got better filament, I've got a way to keep it dry and warm, or pre-warm, just like preheating your bed and preheating your tip. And I've got a better Z-axis, so I have overall better control, resulting in a better print. The other thing too is that I also got the parameters from another guy on the on YouTube there as well. I think I mentioned that in the last video. Check him out. Like, this guy, he does stuff for minis, and that's a 3D printed tabletop. 3D printed tabletop. I've never met the guy. He probably has no idea who I am. Some hick in Canada somewhere. And he knows his stuff, and he was the one that basically made me think, I think I could do that, right? Because he had a video about the Ender 3 Pro, and he showed how he can actually do some pretty decent quality printing for D&D or minis and stuff like that. And he also provided on his website the parameters and some little cheats and stuff that he had to creating an overall better layering and better results and detail for tiny little miniature out of just the stock stuff that comes with that printer. And I don't know, he obviously has a lot more experience than I do. Maybe he set up his minis a little bit better with support somehow, and stuff like that to get the results that he did from the basic box. But I couldn't do it from the basic box. I couldn't do it with that printer ink though either. Maybe if I just changed that printer ink, maybe I'd still get the same kind of results because I did the upgrades sooner before I ran out of the purple stuff, right? But I think that is genuinely a really decent upgrade for that printer that you just cannot go wrong with, especially if you're going to print multiple things on the bed. I was afraid to, because the first few times I tried, it usually fails somehow, and it's a bigger failure because you're failing now on multiple prints that you've started, and if you have one that gets messed up somehow, well, then that screws up everything else as well, right? Because they're all you can't just X-nay the one spot that got screwed up, say, hey printer, don't print that anymore, it's screwed up, just continue printing the other ones. No, it still tries to print everything, even if that one's screwed up, so then it's going to end up screwing everything else up on there too. So I was afraid to print more at once until I got this upgrade. Now it has that better control, that better stability, and it's not dragging one side following the other one as it moves up and down, right? I've yet to really have a failure, unless it was a failure right from the first layer where I didn't balance the board properly, or I didn't have it quite close enough, or I had it too close for the first layer to get laid down properly. Generally now, if that first layer gets laid down properly, it's going to print everything. The only other thing now is remembering that there's times that you may not need supports. And if you don't need supports, you're going to get obviously better quality by not having them, because you don't have all this, stuff that you have to try and break off your minis or your sculptures or whatever it is you're making. However, if you've got a character that's got an arm out like this, there's nothing supporting all the material that makes that arm going all the way out there. So you have to make something to support it. And depending on the slicing software that you have, they all have their way or some way of doing support. I'm using Cura 4.1 right now, and it's pretty good. It's a good slicing program, and it automatically, if you put it in and you select the option, it can automatically put supports in, but it puts a lot in there. So depending, again, on what you're printing, I checked out Meshmaker, which you can download for free as well, is a little bit better for that, because you can actually go in and you can tell it to automatically add supports to anything that shows up in red, like under the person's chin, the arm that's hanging out, right? If it's got something on their back, like a backpack, just the very tip or the end of it, because there's nothing supporting it from underneath, all of that kind of stuff. Meshmaker is a pretty powerful tool to use, because you can tell it to do different diameters, and you can tell it to say do tree support, and then you can go in and use your control and click button, and you can delete, saying any of the additional supports that not necessarily going to need. So that way it's going to be a little easier for you to be able to pull all that stuff off your mini after you've printed it. So I've gone on long enough. This is a long conversation just for doing a quick few upgrades, but I'm there now. I'm gonna start printing out. I'm gonna do some minis, and when we get back into the next episode, I plan, for 3D printing anyway, I plan to have some printed material that we can take a look at. Maybe we can prime it. Maybe we can do a little bit of painting. Other than that, please subscribe. We've got that competition still. I honor the competition. The compressor and everything is still sitting just over here, right? Just waiting for us to get to 300 subscribers, so that I can then ask everybody for a name or something, so we can do a little draw, and I'm gonna give this thing away. to somebody, you know, just because I don't want it. I have one and I got a spare, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's brand new, right? So I'd rather just give it away to somebody, especially if you're just getting into maybe doing some airbrushing and stuff like that. You don't want to spend a lot of money. All you got to do is subscribe. You don't have to spend any money. Watch my videos, like, you know, subscribe, put in some comments, you know, and if you're lucky, when we get to 300 subscribers, I'll do the draw, and you could be the winner of a compressor. And it's just a matter of going out and getting yourself some kind of gun to start with, and you're ready to go with some paint. You know, so until next time, keep on painting, keep on building, keep on making. That's what it's all about. You know, if you're building, making, or painting, you're doing something creative, right? Doesn't matter what else is going on out there, right? You know, it just keeps you going. And I'll catch you around on the next one.